Inni Kaur is going to be presenting our second session, and this is all on shifting paradigms. Inni Kaur is the creative director with the Sikh Research Institute and someone that we have learned to grow and love through all of the writings and the incredible work that she has. And you'll get to see through the presentation, she has quite the way with words and a beautiful way with words that really will speaks to your heart. And so we're very fortunate to have her with us today. I'm going to turn this all over to you. And for those of you listening, enjoy.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Recapping and piggybacking on what Jaspreet Kaur said, which was lovely. She talked about Guru Nanak Sahib and as now to look at it as Shabad wisdom. What I remember when I was studying Sidak was the line in Sidak when he was asked by the Sikhs, "Who is your Guru?" And that's important to know because what he said was Shabad is my Guru. So that is, defining what Shabad is. So when Jaspreet says that the gurus, the body, they understood that the Bani was higher. That's that part which he is talking about, which I thought very few people say that. And it was really lovely to hear her share that. And that's how, I recalled what Sidak was, that line in Sidak. So thank you, Jaspreet, for that. So what are we going to talk about in this session? It really is, now that we know to a certain extent how we should look at Guru Nanak Sahib, because there's so many portraits that are being put out there, and Jaspreet has taken us through this lovely presentation. So let's look at the vision and the revolution. And I use the word revolution. And you've also seen in the presentation that we've used the word the revolutionary, which is not commonly associated with Guru Nanak Sahib, because we look at it from all our understandings as growing up. And currently, there are a lot of people who you will probably hear saying, well, we are Sikhs of the first maybe 5 gurus or of Guru Nanak Sahib and not the rest. But they don't recognize it's the first to the 10th, to the Guru Panth, it's all the same. And Jaspreet mentioned again in the presentation, the visions of the khadak, the sword, the canopy, everything is very much there. So taking you through that journey, let's talk about the framework. So before even we get to that framework, and, if we can allow ourselves to go back in time and think about the political and the social conditions of the 1500s in Hindustan or in South Asia at that moment and time. Because when we go there, we can then we can appreciate all this at a much vaster scale. Not to say that we can't, that the Bani that was revealed at that time is not pertinent there. It's extremely pertinent and very much there, but you will understand the revolutionary nature of it. So when we turn to Jagjit Singh, who's an amazing, amazing author, and he frames it as, he calls it the Sikh revolution. And he said this revolution continues from the first Nanak to the 10th, to the Guru Panth, continues to this day. And in this revolution, as every revolution has, there are 3 goals. So what are these 3 goals? And he talks about to create a society equal. He talks about these goals. Now, these 3 goals, I submit to you humbly, are the reason for our existence, are really the reason for Sikhi, for each one of us existence. If anyone asks you, well, what is Sikhi all about and what is the purpose? Well, that right there. This is it. To create a society of equals, to fight for that religion and political domination, and to capture the power for the commoner. And we don't shy away from this. This is what we do. This is who we are. And this is what we own up to. So when people put us in categories, they can't, because this is our if we can call it our marching orders, if I may put it in today's language. So Guru Nanak Sahib, there was something beautiful, which, Jasprit took us through, the Shabads, which talked about who he was. He was a divana, he was a madman. And that's all great and wonderful, because you've now placing him as to when he was in that space and time, what were the people saying about him? Think about it as when people in today's world are doing something extraordinary in the sense of challenging everything. Everyone is telling them, why are you doing this? You're crazy, because it's so difficult. It's dangerous. It's downright insane to do this. And you still continue doing it. And Guru Nanak Sahib, in his own words, he says, and I'm going to read this, amongst the lowliest of the low, I am the lowest. So he's identifying himself with the lowliest. That is what we need to do. That's what he's telling us. And he says, Nanak seeks their company. Why would one compete with those above? So are we seeking the company of the ones that are lowly, the ones that downtrodden, who need to be lifted? Or are we seeing the company of those much above us? Because it's cushy and it's great to be seen in those places. And then the last line, which he says, where the lowly are cared for, there is the glance of your grace. So we talk about grace, we talk about nadar. And how do you experience that grace? Grace is always present, no question about that. But are we feeling the grace? It is when we stand with the downtrodden. It's when we fight for their rights, when we capture the power. That is when you will feel the grace. Now, that's an extremely revolutionary statement. These are his words, and we need to reflect on these words. So how did Guru Nanak Sahib shift the paradigm? And in other words, the model. We use these words, paradigm, but it really is a model. And there are two things which I'm going to talk about. There are lots of things which are written here, but the things that I really want to focus on are two. One is the language, and we don't recognize language as being political or revolutionary, but going back to that time and space, we need to remember what the societal norms were of that period. The norms were that the common person did not have access to divinity or to the scripture. In fact, only the Brahmins could interpret it and recite it. The so-called, I'm going to use this word very carefully, the so-called low-caste Hindus were not allowed to even hear the mantras. So by making the language of the scripture, of the Guru Granth Sahib, of the language he was speaking, which allowed the common person to have access to the divinity, that is what it was revolutionary. And the other thing that was amazing was the equality. Yes, the companionship of Mardana and all that, but this equality was amazing in the way that is an action, right? This is giving a practical shape to the idea of equality. There is the principle, and then how do you put it into action? So if I use today's language, it would be the Guru instituted a custom of interdining in a common mess. We can relate to that, because keeping in mind the shadow of a low caste or Hindu or person was considered as death. They were not even allowed to walk the streets. They had separate wells. And here you're sitting there and dining together. And then we also know about the Sakhi of Malik Pago and Pailalo. The one part is of eating together. That is one part of it. But the second part, which few know, is that the first manji that Guru Nanak Sahib gave was to Pailalo. And we all know Pailalo was of a very humble beginning. He was a carpenter by profession. So that's where the idea of a revolutionary, challenging the existing conditions social conditions, political conditions makes that revolution possible. Those are the ideas when you go against the norm. So we come to the next one, which is Asa Ki Var. Honestly, I would highly recommend that you study this Bani. And I say this because we normally say you need to sing the Bani. But this is one Bani which if you want to really study what the revolution was, this is Asa Ki Var. Because in here, through his own words, through the Guru's own words, he says how divinity is, how Bani gives access beyond caste, beyond gender. And he challenges those. And this Bani, this Asa Ki Var also speaks about the self-awareness of the self. What is it that we need to focus on? As well as the awareness of the corruption, hypocrisy, and the political and religious dramas that are going on around that time. So, he talks about that. And that is where I say that study this Bani. Because in there you will say how he is confronting the Brahmins of the time, the political leaders of that time in that play, if I can call it that. But what's also very interesting is, if we get the idea that, we are being told not to do this, and therefore we need to condemn. No, there's no condemnation in this whole thing. It is really to raise our awareness and make us aware of what is happening around us. And that witnessing all this, how are we as individuals to remain steady, to remain rooted in that vastness of Ikyunkar, to be rooted in that love of the beloved, the Ikyunkar. There's a huge emphasis in Asa Ki Var in how to become a lover, and is to become a lover. And if I may say so, to become a lover, we use it in today's sense of today's lover. This is not that lover which you say, well, I'm in love with so-and-so, because that is not love. That's a transaction. Love is when you submit, when you do everything and anything without expectation, and you love for the sake because you have no choice. Those are the lovers that no matter what the consequences, what it is, they continue that love because they have no option. And when lovers enter that arena, there's chiseling to enter that arena of love. And that chiseling, honestly, is a political act. Because that chiseling changes our behavior when you enter into this world of the beloved, into this world of this love. And this chiseling allows us or helps us to fight against the injustices, the hypocrisies that the Guru is talking about in Asa Ki Var. So it is actually, if I look at the Asa Ki Var, it's taking you, look what is happening around, then making you a lover, making you aware of that, and then strengthening you to become a lover so that you can confront all this. So it's a beautiful trajectory or a beautiful path if you can look at it in that light and see how it is connected, and to make you stronger, to make us stronger. When I say you, forgive me, I'm not talking about you, I'm talking about us in this part. So confronting power, for those who say Guru Nanak Sahib was just a spiritualist, well, they haven't studied the Bani they haven't studied Babar Bani. Recall also that Guru Nanak Sahib was jailed, was in prison. So what I want to focus on is that the act of witnessing and documenting is a really political act. Even today, in today's world, those who write about the atrocities that are being committed, those who document this, there's a price they have to pay. We know that. But one of the other things, so this is what Guru Nanak Sahib is doing. He's seeing what's happening. He's seeing what Babur is doing, the emperor, the most powerful person who is destroying. And he is witnessing and talking about it and writing about it and challenging him, while nobody else is. No other spiritualist, no other peers are doing that. But there's one other thing which I want to talk about the Babur Bani, is that Guru Nanak Sahib is not just witnessing it, the violence or the attacks against the people, especially the women. He's also understanding that the women are being used as pawns. And that's, and it's a power play between two men of the same faith. This is not a religious war. This is about two men wanting power, and the collateral damage of that is the women, and how women are being subjugated and are being used. And that's the collateral damage which he's talking about, which is, even in today's, the ones during war, who are the ones that suffer the most? It is the women. And he's documenting that and writing, and he's identifying with that. We move to the next. So it's not only that he's criticizing or making us aware. Maybe criticizing is not a word comfortable using, but he's talking about the leadership, the political leadership, and the spiritual. So he's saying that it's interesting that he's doing that, because we don't want to criticize leadership, whether it be political or spiritual, because we want to be seen with them. We want to be invited to their high places of the know-hows. I mean, even today, if I read what's in the paper since last week, is like the who's who in particular worlds are inviting the who's who in the religious world to come to their events and bless them and be part of their ceremonies. So here Guru Nanak Sahib is talking about the custodians of the faith, the Qazis, the Brahmins, the yogis. And he says, these so-called pure ones, how can they connect you to the divinity? Because they themselves are imperfect. And the Guru is also enlightening us that, the rulers there, they are there, but they are only there for their selfish purposes. These kings are only there for themselves and not for the people. Now, these statements itself are defiance, that he's challenging both the political and the spiritual of that time period. And who would do that in today's world? What would it mean for us to criticize the establishment? What would be the grief that we would get? So I want to make it very real, that these are not just things that happened then. These are things which we need to deal with in today's world. Can we get inspired from this? Can we take what was happening then and apply it to our lives today? Because that body is very relevant. It is for the here and now. It is to inspire us to how to deal with our lives. We go to the next one. So it's not just about saying this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. This is also about showing the way of saying, well, what is it that we need to look for our politicians or our leaders? What should be the qualifications? And Guru Sahib reframes it. And he says that those who love, and it's important every time the Guru speaks, love is the first word. So that we need to understand that unless and until we truly love, we cannot pick up the sword. The idea of the principle of Sant Sapai. The Sant is that saint, the one who is in love, not today's sons. Let's not go by today's title. The one who Sat is the one who lives the truth, the one who lives the eternal principles. So for us, it is that. It is when we love that, those internal principles, love that truth, that we can pick up the karak, the sword, because then we'll know how to act in the right way. And the Guru says, for a ruler, for anybody in power, political power, or whatever else, the way is to really recognize that truth, that sat, get rid of the duality, that there is the other. Duality is that I'm separate from you. Get rid of that. And let's pause. If we had our leaders, if we chose, I would say, let's put this on us. If we chose our leaders, the ones who lived the truth, where we can see that, the ones who are serving the people instead of ruling the people, the political arena would look very different. But this is on us as well. Are we choosing the right leaders? Are we cultivating the right leaders? It is much easier to put the blame on somebody else, and rightly so. But what are we doing? Where is our responsibility in this? And that is, for me, the power of Bani, where it reframes your thinking. It's much easier to say, I can't do it. That's just the way the world is. No, we are part of the world. We are in the world. We live in the world. We are not to be, the Guru hasn't told us that we need to sit on a mountaintop. Believe me, as much as I would like to, that's not the way. It's very much being part of the world. And so now we move to the next one, where Guru reframes now what the spiritual qualities are. So this I find to be really lovely, because, for me, I've always had this tussle that is much easier for me to be up on the mountain. And when I was studying Sidak, the Bani, which Guru Nanak Sahib is having a dialogue with the Sikhs, and he's telling them, basically, the Sikhs are saying, you're not, you're a family man, and you're not going to be able to experience the divine. This is not the way. How are you going to take your people across and all that? They challenge him. And the way the Guru answers each one, there is such clarity and grace in that answering. But those answers are today's answers. And the Guru says, that alone is a yogi. That alone is the Brahman. That alone is the person who knows the way, who recognizes the one, who knows the one, who experienced the one. Because once you have that experience of the one, the Ek Onkar, that will be your guide. And for us, it is the Guru Granth Sahib, the Bani, that takes us to experience the one. It's all about experiencing the one, that we as Sikhs of the Guru need, follow that path. We come to the next part. So was this a revolutionary? I mean, Jagjit Singh says that. What was the aim? The idea of mukti, for us, liberation, is living in today's world, here and now, and fighting with love for the oppression, to uplift everyone. And I want to be careful with the word when I use the word help. We use the word help way too literal, in the sense, while we mean it humbly, it is not really a humble thing. Help means that I have something that I can give you. It is really, we serve. And that's one of the things which I have loved about this book, because the way he frames it, it's all about serving. So the mindset changes. Serving, when you have that mindset, you get into that frame of mind and be able to do that. Let me just see, how am I doing for time, Anu? And I end with, I want to say Sikri's favorite poet, or I must say my favorite poet. And this is what Puran Singh has summed it up, that no man or society that has risen from the dead into the life of the spirit can tolerate political subjugation or social slavery of unjust laws and rules. And I take it back to the first slide when Jagjit Singh said, it is, what are we here for? This is what we are here for. So when people say that, why are Sikhs always ready to fight? It's not we're ready to fight. This is our mandate given to us by the Gurus. And that's what we are here to do. But to fight with love, to fight with justice. There is no such word as revenge in Sikh parlance. It is justice. And justice comes when you know I don't even want to use the doctrine, when you know the principles and you're fighting for that. And what are you fighting for? You're fighting for the one whose rights are the most marginalized. You stand with the lowliest of the low. That is Guru's words. So what are our learnings? The learnings from the first session was that the real Guru Nanak is really Shabad and not the popular images. And I want to share the story with you because we talked so much about Soba Singh. When Soba Singh unveiled that portrait, he had Paivir Singh unveil it, where they were friends. And Paivir Singh unveiled it and went on to a corner, and Soba Singh came to him and said, "What do you think? Did you like it?" And he said, "This is not the Guru Nanak that I know." So that's a pause for us to think, is that the Guru Nanak we know? Or do we even know Guru Nanak? And how do we think about it? And what is the spiritual and the political model? I think for us personally is to become the lover of the one, to have a relationship with the one. And then once that relationship is solidified, or we have that, what is our public responsibility for that one's lover? It is to challenge, to critique, to confront, to continue. Look at those words. It's not that sit in a mansion, sit on a mountaintop. It is not to enjoy political power. It is to confront the power, to get the power for the people. It is not for you. So those are the learnings which we have from this session. And I end this session with that. Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Thank you so much, Inni Kaur, for sharing your presentation with us. And also to everyone out there we started the conversation with the first session as well about challenging our idea, and this continued to help us kind of reframe and as I repeat the word challenge, our thoughts around Guru Nanak Sahib, and really instilling this idea as that revolutionary, as we think about what the time and context in which he came to us in, and what that scene looked like. And so this last presentation helped us to kind of delve a little bit deeper into all of what Guru Nanak Sahib had to offer for us.